Thank you, Cameron, my moderator. Can you hear me now? Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? The audio input seems to be right. All right. Audio looks like it's fixed. Let's kick it back over. Let's start over. Hi, my name's Chris Reeder, aka Mental Pablum. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my first live stream. A live stream all about creating my comic book, The Vigilantes. The Vigilantes is a superhero book that I'm working on. It'll be the first one that I've ever published. It is currently on pre-launch on Indiegogo with plans to launch the campaign at the beginning of October for the full book. The full book is going to be, for the campaign, a 48-page square-bound book, which basically is containing 2 issues of a normal-sized comic book, which each issue is going to be 22 pages of story. So 44 pages of story, 48 pages total. We have some leftover pages so that we can do shout-outs to anyone who supports the campaign and some pinups, some extras that we can fit in there as we go along. With this first stream, what I wanted to do was really talk about the creation of a comic book. So the whole channel was about creating this comic book, The Vigilantes. And I know we were going to talk, in my intro, I talked about art streams, and I still plan on doing some art streams if I can figure out when I'm doing the art, if it's a viable time to actually do an art stream. So at the beginning, want to walk into it with, how do I create the comic book? So when people think about creating a comic book, you have to think about, okay, what's the idea? Where did this come from? And so I did want this first stream for you guys just to kind of get to know me, get to know where the comic book started from. And then the next stream, what I was thinking about doing was really talking about the tools that I'm using. So talk about the comic book a little bit and the influences behind it. There were 3 main influences in this comic book. I've been collecting comic books since 1984. That's when I got into my first comic book. It was Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. I can still remember it to this day. I went over to a friend's house and I saw the comic book sitting there on the bed. And instead of playing and spending time with him, I immediately picked it up and began reading it and was just amazed. And then he turns to me, because at the time I was heavily into G.I. Joe. And he said, well, you know, there's a G.I. Joe comic book. And my mouth dropped. I was like, what? And I was sold from there. I was addicted to comic books. As soon as my dad came and picked me up, I told him, Dad, we have to find some place that sells comic books. I have to get this G.I. Joe comic book. I have to get this Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars comic book. So that's what I did. I got those, and that's how I got into comic books. So I've been collecting comic books steadily since 1984. So comic books are a huge influence, obviously, to the creation of this. Anything that I have read or collected or seen has influenced this book. When I think about the creation of this book, a lot of it is, of course, amalgamations of characters that I've grown up with and I've read. So you're going to see a lot of that. All the archetypes that would be in superhero comic books are going to be showcased, I think, in this book, particularly in this first story arc that I have written. The second influence for this comic book comes from the pen and paper tabletop role-playing games, without a doubt. In the 80s, played a lot of Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. That created, in my idea, all the ideas for these comic books. The second one would be Villains and Vigilantes. maybe somehow influenced where I got the name for the comic book, the Vigilantes. I just like the name, the sound of the word. So I thought it fit rather well. As a matter of fact, I have props for my first stream. I still have my first Vigilantes role-playing guide. I still have it. I think it's the second edition is what it is. But many hours of just rolling all types of crazy characters in the villains and vigilantes, for sure. You're looking at the artwork, I thought the characters were really cool, and we made some crazy heroes and villains in that role-playing game for sure. So those were huge, especially when the creation of the comic book and the characters, some of the characters that we created were completely crazy. They were characters that you would not see anywhere in a comic book. They didn't make any sense whatsoever. And my friends, some of whom were not really comic book collectors at all, and gave them the most insane names ever. So that was the first prompt for this comic book, because the Vigilantes actually started out really as a parody book. It was going to be very much a comedy, just taking characters, powers, origin stories, slamming them together, and just running gags throughout. And that's really how it started with the characters. There was one character very much looked and was supposed to be Spawn, a Spawn-like character. He was the Video Avenger. And basically what we decided he did is he would go into kids' rooms and he would steal their video games because he didn't think they should be playing video games. So stuff like that. I still remember the characters that we created. One's particular name was Disintegrating Light. I have no idea what that means, but my friend named him Disintegrating Light, and I can't remember the other character's name, but he probably could have kind of looked like my Massive Man character. And just from those characters that we rolled, we weren't even going to ever play them. We just decided I had to draw it. I drew a fake cover. It was the first issue, although on the cover I put on there, by popular demand. It's the first issue, so how could it be by popular demand? But just the concept of the characters were crazy, so the concept of the book had to be crazy. And so that really was a huge influence. So the comic books, for one, but really those role-playing games and the characters that we created just really spawned idea after idea, and we took it further than just the role-playing games. As a matter of fact, if any of my friends were on, they would probably remember this. I still have this as well. This was the original publishing that we were going to do, which is called Crow Comics. I don't have no idea why we decided to call it Crow. I can't remember that. You can see it's in my beautiful Return of the Jedi folder, that two-pocket folder that I had from high school or junior high school, and created this as well. And inside, there are plots for numerous issues of comics, and some of them are actually in the comic book. There's at least 2 or 3 of the characters that are created in here from the role-playing games, and that I actually created plots for that made it into the comic book. Now, of course, some of the ideas, I haven't read these. I probably should go back and read these. Probably horrible. But there's some kernel of an idea that was there that got me to where the Vigilantes is today. And then the last piece that really influences this comic book and is the more recent is online role-playing games. So MMOs. And of course the biggest one for me is an MMO that was called City of Heroes by NCSoft, which has since been shut down by NCSoft a lot of years ago now, but has resurfaced in public servers, which is great. City of Heroes, I took characters that I had created that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do in a comic book, and I took them and I put them in this game, particularly Questor, who you'll see and we'll talk about in a little bit. was a character that I had created previously for a series called, I think I called it like Justice Force. You know, how 90s is that? It's called Justice Force. And he was sort of the anti-hero foil for this group of heroes. And another character that I created specifically for the Vigilantes book because of what the properties are of the book, Banff, he also made it to City of Heroes as well. I created him inside of there. And what was great about City of Heroes was you're putting them in this world, you're giving them life, it seemed like, and the costume creator inside of City of Heroes was incredible. You could just do all kinds of things. So I kind of could take and get as closely to what I had drawn and make it real. That was a nice lightning strike right there. So those were huge. And then from there, what also happened is I created characters inside City of Heroes that were original, that were brand new. And as I worked on the Vigilantes and I knew I wanted to do the comic book, I looked back and I said, these will work. These can be morphed. I can use these characters. I can remove these characters. They're similar enough, or some of them are completely different, but they're better to use in the story. And some of my friends created comic book characters as well inside of City of Heroes, and I loved those characters. I loved the story behind the characters, and I loved the visualization of the characters, and then I could take that visualization that was in City of Heroes, and then I could make it in a comic book form. I could tweak it and twist it, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to actually showing the comic book and the characters from the comic book. So that was a huge piece too. So that was amazing. So those are the influences behind what helped me create the comic book. So of course comics, again, online, the role-playing games, tabletop, as well as online MMO. Those all helped influence create the comic book. So now let's talk about the comic book. And I want to start with what the backdrop of the comic book is. And the backdrop of the comic book is really a world where the Vigilantes are omnipresent. They are everywhere and they are in everything. And so they are bigger than sports athletes. They are bigger than Hollywood stars. They are the biggest names that are on the planet in this world. So it kind of goes, and they've taken that and they've ran with it at this point, and they've just taken it to the nth degree. So much that when you look at the way Vigilantes are portrayed in the comic book, they are followed all the time, almost 24 hours a day, it seems like. And again, the social media has just blown that up even further for them. That goes to our tagline that we have for the comic book. Let's see if I could switch here. Give it a second to catch up. We have that. And I have that on a shirt, actually, the tagline. The Vigilantes, it's not about truth. It's not about justice. It's all about the attitude. It's a shirt that I'm wearing right now. I have a Teepublic site. If you want any Vigilantes product, if you're interested, everything helps make the comic come true. So even buying shirts or stickers, phone cases, all kinds of stuff you can buy at teepublic.com. So if you find a character that you particularly gravitate towards, you can go there and get something for one of those characters. That would be awesome as well. So that's another way to help. Audio gone again. It's on the Yeti. All right. Maybe when I switch Cameron, I don't know. We'll have to look at that later. Again, first stream, working some things out. So that's the backdrop of the Vigilantes. Let's talk about the theme of what the book's going to be about. The theme of the book is all about legacy and what do you want to leave behind. And there's going to be one prime person that everyone gravitates towards about legacy. That's the legacy that's at the forefront. But there's actually several characters as the entire story unfolds that will be more about legacy as well. Right? That'll be very important to keep the thread through. Is about legacy. What do you want to leave behind? Because what was started for Vigilantes is not the way vigilanteism is going now. And so Massive Man as a character, that's what happens. So that's a huge piece of it as well. So another question to ask is so why do the comic book now? What was the catalyst for that for me? And because I've had this idea, again, been reading comic books since 1984. The idea for the Vigilantes really started late 80s. And then I really started working on it a little harder, probably in the early 90s with character design. And then it just sort of faded away. So there's several things about why now. One is I got back into drawing heavily about 5 years ago. So I sort of got away from drawing on a routine basis for quite a while. And then about 5 years ago, I was on YouTube, and people like Cartoon Block on YouTube, Todd Knock on YouTube, Jonathan Rector on YouTube, they just sort of, stirred something inside me. I want to get back into drawing, and so I started drawing again, and I started drawing a lot, and then I ended up getting a tablet, and so that I could color with my drawing. So it just wasn't pencil, or it just wasn't black and white. I could start doing things digitally. I could start doing color digitally. So I did that, and then I started to create fan art, and I wanted to be able to get back, reimburse myself for the money that I was putting out by buying my digital devices and some of my other things. And so I started doing comic book shows around the North Carolina area. So we live in North Carolina. So started selling those, and just felt like I was getting better at drawing again, getting to where I felt comfortable, like where I wanted to be from a style, and that it really fit. And then the other thing was, again, thinking about legacy. Last year, I was turning 50. It's a big milestone for me. And I was like, I just need to do this comic book. I just need to do it. I just need to make it happen, so that I can say it's not something that I just didn't do. Not afraid to do it. No reason for me not to. Again, these are ideas that I created a long time ago, and some of the ideas have been done by other creators and in different ways. There's all kinds of things that you can equate the Vigilantes to be honest with you. But this is my story told my way with my characters, so it's different. So I don't want that to hold me back, to be afraid just because, like somebody might say it looks like this story, or I've seen that someplace else. I don't want to listen to that. I just want to tell my story, again, my characters, the way I want it to be told. I think that's the biggest thing. And I don't want to like never have it happen, and say that I could have done it. I certainly had the means to do it, but just never did it. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I think I can do it. I think my skill level is to a point where I can do it, and I think that it's just time for me to make it happen. So that's the why behind it. So let's talk a little bit about the characters. And so I'm going to switch screens, and I may have to mess with my mic again when I do that. All right. So we're going to talk about the comic book real quick, and by going through the characters. And in the characters, what I did is I created a preview guidebook. Actually, we'll talk about that after I'm done talking about the characters. But in the preview book, it has the 10 main hero characters that I'm going to go through right now. So we're going to start with the big one, which is Massive Man. So Massive Man is the oldest vigilante. He's the original vigilante. He's the one who started it all. And so he's one of the main characters we'll follow through when we're talking about legacy. He has been retired for about 20 years. His wife passed away when his son was really young, and so he decided to take himself out of the vigilante life and just focus on his son. So he hasn't been involved in the vigilante community. And he wants, now that his son is coming out to be a vigilante, he wants to support that. And so he's there for that. But that's where he finds out that being a vigilante isn't what it was when he was a vigilante. And when he finds that out, it's hard for him to accept, right? He's used to the old ways, the old code, and the way these new kids are doing it. He's not into that. But so he needs help because, again, he's been out of it for close to 20 years. And so he turns to a really old friend of his that has been around as long as he has. He came out just after Massive Man showed up, and that character's name is Mesphalisto. So Mesphalisto is a much darker type of character than Massive Man is, for sure. He is a magic user and uses a lot of illusions, but he's still a vigilante, and he's a vigilante that Massive Man knows. He's still active. He's the only original vigilante from Massive Man's time that is still active. And so Massive Man wants to use Mesphalisto to help him bridge the gap between the old school and the new school so that he can feel comfortable that he's leaving a good legacy for his son. Massive Man's son is Josh. So Josh is a very bright young man who has powers very similar to his father's. So he has super strength and invulnerability. He's just not as strong. He's not as big, right? His dad is Massive Man. And Josh just isn't massive. He is strong, but he's a lot more agile than his dad, and he's certainly more in tune with the technology of the vigilante life. So then when you talk about the vigilantes in the current day, Banff is the number one vigilante in the world. They rank vigilantes in this world, and Banff is what Massive Man was back in the day. And so Massive Man and Banff share a lot of commonalities in power set. And, Banff would tell you that he modeled a lot of his career after Massive Man, to be honest. You can even see it in the color scheme of the costumes. There's similarities there, but Banff has fully embraced the social media. He's fully embraced, all of the love and adoration that people are giving him. So, Banff is somebody that definitely if Massive Man can sway Banff into changing how he does things, that would go a long way. So that's why Mesophisto would bring Bamf to him. Then you have Mistress Knight. So Mistress Knight is one of the characters that I got from a friend of mine that I played City of Heroes with. So she is like a street urchin character. She's a runaway from her family in my book, the way I've written her backstory. And she has dark energy powers, and she's empathic with her dark energy powers. So she takes the energy, the emotions from the people around her, and she can actually channel those into energy weapons, dark energy weapons, or shields, or some kind of offensive weapon. So you can do a lot of different things with those. She's a little bit of a darker character. She's a little bit more reserved. She doesn't know, exactly who she can trust in a lot of situations, because again, she's gone through a lot in her background. And then there's Echo Hawk. Echo Hawk is the billionaire technology guru of the Vigilantes. So he created his suit of power, and he parlayed that into a billionaire company that he has that's called Evolved Machinations. And he's very, very generous with his money, for sure. He's definitely always trying to uplift people, but a lot of his technology is behind the social media technologies that are behind all of the Vigilantes, for sure. So Echo Hawk has a power suit. His powers are sonic based from the suit, and he also has some little bit strength, as well as some power gauntlets that he can use when he punches people too. So we get to see him very early on as well. He plays an important piece. And then there's Questor. So Questor is a character that I created a long time ago. I remember creating Questor, again, like I said earlier, I created Questor as a foil for a superhero group called Justice Force. And at the time, back then, he was just called Quest. And I remember drawing him. I still have the sketchbook over here to the side of me of the initial drawing of him. He originally was called Quest, not Questor. But when I got into City of Heroes and I went to create the character, the name Quest had already been taken by somebody. So I just added the OR to it. Questor, okay, that's a person who quests. So that works just fine as well. So created him. He went from being, when I originally drew him, he was actually modeled after a wrestler at the time from the South named Sid Vicious. I just remember Sid Vicious's curly blonde hair. So I pictured, when I drew Questor, I actually drew him sort of in a luchador mask, but with the blonde hair coming out of the back. So that was the original Questor. From City Heroes, luchador masks weren't really something that I could put in there. Nothing really fit. They had this really cool helmet. Probably looked too much like Iron Man. I've made some adjustments for the comic book. So he sort of has this robotic looking helmet that he has. Questor is a man of mystery. Nobody knows a lot about him. He is non-powered. He doesn't have superpowers. He is a brilliant tactician. He is probably the best fighter on the planet. Multiple weapons, multiple fighting styles. And he always has these gadgets, right? Echo Hawk is a technologist and has access to a lot of things. And the stuff that Questor has and comes up with makes Echo Hawk jealous. So Questor is a bit of an enigma. A lot of people don't know what to make of him. He usually stays on the sidelines, doesn't team up a lot of people, only when it benefits him, only when he has something to gain from it, is when Questor will team with somebody. And so people don't know quite. There's a lot of rumors about Questor. People don't know if they can trust him, if he's a government agent trying to keep tabs on them. Like, they don't know what he is. So he's really a challenge for people to figure out, for sure. And then there's Smoke Signal. So Smoke Signal, Native American, who has fire powers, and another one of the characters that I got from City Heroes from a friend of mine that created this character. And I just think visually he was really cool. And then I played with some of the powers and what he might look like, and really added a lot more to him than really what was in the costume designer in City Heroes, for sure. And there's some touches in there that I did specifically for the comic book. One of the neat things that I think visually, I hope really resonates inside of the comic book when I draw him, is he has a cape, and when his powers turn on, the cape begins, as it gets closer to the bottom, begins to go into smoke. And this helps him in a couple different ways. One, if you're trying to shoot him from a ranged distance, the smoke sort of makes it hard to see him. And if you're close up with him and you're going to fight him melee style, that you may choke on the smoke itself too. So he can control fire, and he also can channel the power of his ancestors into these really mighty blows. And in the picture, that's the energy band that you see around his one fist. That's what that is right there. And then there's his wife, Electroflame. And Electroflame is an alien princess, married the Smoke Signal. She is royalty from her planet, and on her planet, the royalty have to go through trials. And the trials get them, if they are able to survive the trials, then what they get is one of the primal energies of their planet. And there's 5 primal energies of the planet. And Electroflame survived her first trial. And most royals would stop at that because the trials are very dangerous. And a lot of royalty, they may not even make it all the way through, and they perish during the trials. Well, she didn't want to stop at just one, and she actually has 2. So she has fire as one of the primal energies, and she has electricity as one of the primal energies as well. But she's not done there. She's not satisfied with just 2. She wants to prove that she's the best, that she's the most powerful. But in order for her, before she takes the next step to go back to her planet and get the next trial, she wanted to come to Earth, and she really wanted to challenge herself. She really wanted to hone her skills and her abilities so that when she faces that third trial, that she feels that she's going to succeed. Now, there's only been one other person on her planet, as far as the backstory that I've written for her, that has successfully got 3 of the primal energies. And she's not going to stop at just 3. She wants them all, right? She's like the ultimate Pokemon collector. She wants to collect them all. So she has a lot of ambition. And if you can see, I can zoom in a little bit. This little emblem here is her family crest, which is the Crimson Sun. So that'll be important later on for stories too. And then the last vigilante character that I have is Tomahawk. Tomahawk is a shaman, and Tomahawk's powers are around animal totems that he can use, and he uses the animal totems to gain the powers from those animals. So as an example, if he needs sight, he can use an eagle totem to get sight. If he needs strength, then he's got bear totems, puma totems for fighting ability, jackrabbit totem for agility and speed, wolf totems for tracking. Tomahawk actually was one of the first characters that I created visually for the Vigilantes. I still have his original picture as well. And when I wrote the original book, the original first issue, which is very different from the first issue that I'm writing, he was the first person that everybody saw, because he started off the story so well with just visually what it was and kind of just put you in there. Then the book, he's the lore master for the Vigilantes. He knows everything about vigilantes. He loves to talk about being a vigilante, and certainly talking about like costumes and things like that. Mama K says, "Hi, could I order 6 preview books, please?" Don Cameron, love you, bro. We'll talk about ordering books in a minute when we're done. We'll get to the pitch here very soon. For sure. But those are the vigilante characters. 10 of them. Again, Massive Man, Mesfalisto, Josh, Bamf, Mistress Knight, Echohawk, Smoke Signal, Electroflame, and Tomahawk. So let's go back. And talk about the book. So when I created and I started working on the comic book, I created the character sketches first. Again, we're talking about creating comic books, right? So I had the story. I wrote down the story. I've written everything out. I have the plot. Back when I first started creating it, I had the general idea of the book, so I knew where things started. I knew really what the catalyst was, and I knew where I wanted to end up. I didn't know anything about what happened in between. What happened in between, and how long is it in between everything? So when I decided that I was going to do the comic book, I sat down and I plotted everything out. And it plotted out to be 12 issues, which is really what I thought it would be in the first place, was 12 issues. So I have a really brief of what those 12 issues look like. I've written the first 4 completely out, and I have those ready to go. And so we'll see how things go, and if people gravitate towards the book, hopefully I'll be able to tell this entire story. Once I had that, and I had the characters that I wanted, so I figured, okay, these are the characters I have. These are the heroes. These are the villains. I got rid of some characters that were in the original book. They didn't work anymore, or I didn't feel that they really resonated the way they should, and some didn't fit the story at all anymore. I moved in some of the characters from City of Heroes, and it just really helped make the book gel, I think, even faster. So I had to draw the characters. It's like, okay, well, what do the characters look like? I knew what they looked like when I originally drew them. I knew some of the changes I had made visually that I liked from, say, something like City of Heroes, and then I took things, of course, from what's current in comics and what looks cool and what do people like to see. And so I designed out the characters, and I have character model sheets for all of the characters. And so I went through what the colors would be for some of them. I even did logos for them as well. So that was a big key piece. Then I was like, okay, well, that's nice, but I need to see them in the environment. I need to fully render them so that I really feel confident that I can put them in a comic book and they feel like real characters that have existed. Because to be honest, one of the reasons I did the preview book was I sort of drop you in to the middle of the story. The story has a starting point for sure, but the world is fully realized, and you learn things as we go. So it was very important that the characters felt like they've existed like this for a long time. So that's where the 10 images that I just showed, that's where they came from. Is I wanted to draw those 10 pinups so that I really felt like, okay, these characters, these are the personalities of these characters. These are who these characters are, and it made sense. So that was a big piece. So that was huge. So the next thing I did is since I had these pinups and I wanted to do the comic book, I was figuring out how can I get people interested in the comic book? What are some ways to do that? And certainly doing a YouTube live stream, that's certainly one way to do it. But I like creating things. And so what I did is I created sort of an homage to the old official handbook of the Marvel Universe or the Who's Who DC. And I created this book, which is the Vigilantes Guidebook. And inside of the Vigilantes Guidebook are the pictures that I just showed you, along with basically the bios for the characters. And the bio page is made up to kind of look like a social media page, which fits the backdrop of the Vigilantes world, because all of these characters definitely have their own social media pages to go into. And so inside this book, it gives you the background information So for those of you who have already purchased this book, I've been selling this book on my website, which is available still on my website for purchase. The link is down below in the description. Right there, it takes you directly to the book where you can buy it. It's $10 plus shipping and handling from the store, and I'll ship it right out to you. Also, thank you to anyone who might be watching this either live now or later that purchased the comic book. I've been doing comic book shows again around North Carolina since the beginning of May, and I have some more coming up, and I've been selling them there too. And people really have taken to the characters as I'm able to talk to them and talk to them about the book. They seem to really enjoy it. Again, it's new, it's fresh, it's different. So I think it's something that people seem to really responding to, which is really cool. So again, book's $10 that you can get from my website. When you order the book, you will get a Mental Pablum, Art of Mental Pablum sticker with my little logo face on there as well. And you will also get this nice shiny little hologram, the Vigilantes logo. It's about 3 inches, vinyl, really nice sticker. Those come with all the books as well. So again, the book gives you background on the characters, as well as the world, and then something that we didn't show on the screen, but is a bonus inside the book, is also the villains that the Vigilantes will be going up against, because without villains, there really can't be a comic book, because really the theme of the book is around legacy, but what the book revolves around is Massive Man trying to change the vigilantes and how they think about going about doing vigilante work. And then you throw the villains into it, which in this case is Alteration. And Alteration is Massive Man's arch nemesis from the past. And Massive Man, before he had retired, had actually exiled Alteration in a battle into space. And he was gone and long forgotten. Well, now he has found a way back somehow. The question is, throughout the story of the books, as I continue to write them, is it really coincidence that Alteration is actually back at the same exact time that Massive Man has also re-entered the vigilante world and Josh has come out? It seems like an odd coincidence. So there may be more to it than just happenstance. So that'll be part of the mystery of the book. So some of these characters that are created in here, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is Gutter Snipe, and I hope that shows up on camera pretty good. Again, going back to the foundations of the book, Gutter Snipe was a character that I created in high school as a villain for Wolverine. And I remember drawing all of these little pinups on just normal sketch paper of Wolverine fighting Gutter Snipe in a sewer, because that's where Gutter Snipe hangs out, because he's a gutter snipe. He hangs out in sewers, so he's stinky, he's smelly, he's not a really nice guy. But that's how old that character is, Gutter Snipe, and he's in the book. I needed to make him. And then another guy, this rocky guy, Boulder. He's another one. He was created, if we go back to what I talked about earlier, which was this Crow comics that I had and created with my friends. There's an actual hero in here that I created, that Boulder was created as his archenemy. I don't know if that character would ever make it into the Vigilantes or not, to be honest with you. It might have to make a lot of changes, but Boulder, I still visually, he was a really cool character because he just has just all these rocks and everything like that. And he's sort of a dumb bodyguard character, even though his background, he was a brilliant person. So that's an example. And then there's like a new guy, as an example, that was created in City of Villains, when City of Heroes had a sequel come out, and it was City of Villains. And I created this character, which was Stone Troll Killer, brand new. I just liked that name. We can slide it over a little bit so you can see him. But yeah, I just, this giant green troll with a hammer that's made out of a cinder block. That's a character that was created from one of the influences, which was City of Heroes / City of Villains. So that's an example of where that stuff could come from. So yeah, so that's the book. That's what I wanted to talk about tonight during this first live stream, was just the genesis, just the ideas that I had for the book, where they came from, how I began putting the book together. Those are the big pieces. So I appreciate those that were on live. I appreciate anybody who watches this in replay. Please click the like button, hit the subscribe button so you see other live streams. I'm going to do another live stream. I think Wednesday night is the plan, where I want to talk about, again, the setting up, like how am I creating the comic book? What tools am I using? How am I doing that? Again, wanted to get this out there, just to let people know about the comic book, the characters, and sort of let people know who they are and get to know them a little bit more. Again, the pre-launch for the campaign that is going to be on Indiegogo is live now, and you can sign up, and the sign up is in the description below. So when you sign up, you put your email in, you're on a newsletter list, and that way you'll actually save 10% if you actually back the project. That would be 10% there. You'll get a list for that. So go to the page, check that out. Also, again, check out my website, the preview guide for the Vigilantes. Order a book so you can get to know about them even more before everything goes live. That would be great. Going to be more live streams, more talking about the book. Try to figure out when I can do some actual art streams, or how to do the art streams as well, coming up, because again, the launch for the actual book, to get it done, will be in October. And again, the book is planning to be, if the campaign is successful, I really want to do a 48-page book, which is basically 2 issues. So appreciate everybody, your time tonight. We're going on about 50 minutes. I think it's a good amount of time for this, talk about this. But thank you. Appreciate it. We will talk to you soon. Plan again. Look for a scheduled stream on this coming Wednesday night. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Talk soon. Bye.